Almost. Now it is.
Oh, mine
There we
says-
go.
Oh, mine says 7, sorry.
Now it says it.
Mine's faster. Oh,
We're all different.
okay.
It's a different time
Well,
zone
mine
over
says
there.
7, or when I hit it.
Well, then we go by yours.
We're going by mine, okay. The Board of Trustees of the Lamar Consolidated Independent School District is called to order at 7 o'clock. This is the regular monthly board meeting being held on November the 19th, 2020. We have a quorum with all members present with the exception of Ms. Bronsell. Please join me in a moment of silence to observe as you feel appropriate. Okay, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and in the pledge to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Ms. Bossick, do we have any public comments?
There are none, Madam Chairman.
Okay. So the next item is the approval of the minutes. So we need to approve the minutes of the October 13th, 2020 special meeting and the October 15th, 2020 regular board meeting. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Ms. Kaminsky makes the motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Hunt makes the second. Any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries, none opposed. Okay. Are there any board member reports?
I have some information from the, all of our constructions that's been going on. So, some talking points. Our bond of 2014, Tamaron Elementary School has a final payment recommendation is scheduled for the December board meeting. For the bond 2017, ALC additions and renovations, 1621 and Alternative Learning Center academic wing construction is in progress. Jane Long Historical Gym renovations, the construction is in progress. The transportation fuel tank replacement, tanks have been removed. Terry High School and George Junior High School additions and renovations, the earthwork, storm installation, and site utilities for additions are in progress. Lamar Consolidated High School and Lamar Junior High School additions and renovations. High school new addition area will be operational after winter break. And the sub-varsity field area construction is in progress. Visitors locker room will start construction on December 7th. Multi-campus improvements and HVAC controls upgrades, final payment recommendation is scheduled for the December meeting. The multi-purpose space at the high school and orchestra middle school additions, all 7 additions are in progress. And Dr. Thomas E. Randall High School and Harriet Wright Junior High School construction is 84% complete. Project is on schedule for schools to open in August of 2021. Trailer Stadium Press Box final payment recommendation is scheduled for the December board meeting. Fletcher Morgan Junior Elementary School, earthwork is in progress. Contractor has started drilling piers. And Maxine Phelan Elementary School design development is in progress. So we are moving right along. No COVID's gonna stop our construction.
Thank you.
I have a report. COVID did stop the Fort Bend Child Advocates from having an in-person tour, but I participated
Right.
along with Ms. Danziger and our former board president, James Steenbergen, and the whole executive staff over at Child Advocates for a Zoom tour. And they were just, and Dr. Rockwood was on that as well. And they were just kind of reconnecting with Lamar, and it's a great organization. They get 70% of their funding from the public and from donations. So And they're always looking for volunteers, so I would encourage anybody who's interested and has some extra money this calendar season or time to donate that to this worthy cause.
It was very good. I've done the one when they didn't have the COVID and you could do the tour, but they just finished remodeling and they've done an excellent job.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think I speak for all my colleagues when I say how happy we are to have you back, Madam President.
Thank you.
We are.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. All right, Dr. Randall, do you have any reports?
I do. First, I want to say thank you to all the voters in Lamar CISD. Our community passed the largest bond referendum in district history, which is no small feat, approving Proposition A and D at $666.8 million. As one of the fastest growing school districts in Texas, our community continues to support our students and the importance of education in Fort Bend County. I also want to be sure to thank Mandy Brunzell and James Steenbergen, along with our community relations, finance, and facilities departments for their hard work during the 2020 bond election. I truly believe we are in a great place thanks to the voters and everyone involved. I'd also like to congratulate our state cross-country qualifiers and volleyball teams for advancing to the playoffs. In fact, every one of our volleyball teams qualified for the postseason. And another big congratulations to all 5 high school marching bands for earning superior ratings at the UIL Marching Band Contest in El Paso this past weekend. Finally, as we head into the Thanksgiving break, I have to thank the hard work of our staff during the fall semester. They have really been working extremely hard, and despite the challenges of COVID-19, everyone continues to work tirelessly to make sure our students have what they need to be successful. We should all be proud and thankful of their efforts. Thank you, Madam President.
Okay. So at this time, we'll establish a consent agenda. The board creates a consent agenda, which are the items the board members feel there is no need for further discussion. All right, so I'll start with A1. Pull that one?
Yes, pull that one, please.
Okay.
Wait, I'm a little confused here, hang on.
That's the course selection?
Okay, let's pull it.
A2, A3, B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B6, B7, B8, B9.
Wait, I'm sorry, man. We go back. I'm really off my bearings here. I'm sorry,
You're good,
everyone.
you're good.
I'm
What-
thinking.
Which one? B?
Yeah, B, the update on number 6.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
The local policy?
Yeah, in fact, let's reestablish this for a little bit. Let's go back up to A1 and put that part of the consent agenda, unless somebody else wants to pull it, because I do not need to.
So you don't want to pull A1?
That's correct.
Anybody else?
I want to pull B6.
Got it. All right, so I think we left off on B10, is that right? Okay. B11, B12, B13, B14, B15,
You have to
We
pull
need to
it.
pull that one.
and C1.
Let's pull that one as well.
Okay, so the consent agenda will be A1, A2, A3, B1, B2, B3, B4, B5, B7, B8, B9, B10, B11, B12, B13, B14, and that's it. Okey-dokes. So may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Ms. Danziger makes a motion, a second.
A second.
Mr. Welch seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, the motion carries.
And Madam President, you usually read the donations on page 4.
It says to do that next?
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's,
perfect.
there's an addendum on here.
So go ahead and read the addendum.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So the addendum, item 7B, number 5, is to consider the ratification of donations to the district. Recommendation is that the Board of Trustees ratify donations to the district. Policy CDC Local states that the Board of Trustees must approve any donation with a value in excess of $5,000. The following donations are Farouk and Rima Alatar donated $5,050 to purchase 16 computers to be used by underprivileged students with disabilities enrolled in the Audit Transition Program. Next is the supporters of Lamar CISD Political Action Committee donated $13,500 to be used for scholarships for ASAP. Next is the Child Nutrition Department received a hometown grant of $10,000 from the Houston Texans and Dairy Max. Next one is Lamar Consolidated High School Activity Fund donated $7,160 to produce a new golf cart for Lamar Consolidated High School. Next, Energy for Schools donated $150,000 to Lamar Consolidated Independent School District to be used at the district's discretion. Next, the Friends of Lehman PTO donated $20,925 to purchase a shade structure outdoor picnic area for Lehman Junior High School. And last is the Pegasus Schools Incorporated donated $20,000 to purchase instruments of technology and accompanying peripheral equipment for students at Wertheimer Middle School. That's wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for the donations. Okay, so we will, may I have a motion to approve item B6?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Mr. Hubenak makes a motion. I'll second it. Second, okay. All right, any discussion?
Yes, there's discussion. I would like to make an amendment, and Mr. Morris, please correct me if this is not the right way to go about this. I would like to approve all the legal changes that this update entails and table all the local changes so that as the chairman of the policy committee, we have not had any committee meetings in a long time because of COVID. I would like to discuss this and think about this a little deeper and have some other conversations before we update the local policy.
Well, you could, rather than move to, I guess you would move to amend to only approve the legal policies. Now, the reality is, the legal policies, TASB's legal policies are just renditions of the law. In fact, TASB doesn't allow you to make any revisions to those policies anyway, so they're just statements of law. So what you really would be asking is to essentially table approval of the recommended local policies.
Yeah, and as you said, we have no right to do anything other than put in policy what the state and the federal government tell us to, and that's what the legal policy entails.
That's correct. So I have not reviewed those TASB updates to see if there are any concerns about delay in approval of those local updates that could be a consideration. But in terms of whether the board takes naturally mean that the consideration of the local policies would have to take place at a later time.
Dr. Randall, you mentioned that it wasn't.
Would you give me an
time was
example of
okay.
something that you feel like needs to be tabled, that you're not
Yeah, you
concerned
can
about?
table it all. I think it's more- just table it all.
Okay. Dr. Randall, we had discussed that timing-wise, it's okay. We have the leeway to table it.
Then it'd be best to table the
The whole
entirety
thing.
of it, because the legal is already in place. Whether you adopt that or
Right.
not, you're bound by all the laws and the legal as we speak. So it would be more simple to just table the item until the next regular meeting.
The entire thing.
The entire thing.
Do you have particular objections, or do you just, as a matter of procedure, want the policy committee to review all the updates first on it, like on an ongoing basis?
There's a lot of language in this update from the local level of very controversial things happening in our society, and it's affecting our schools. And I just want to, I've had a few conversations with some folks about it, and I just want to think through it a little bit more and have some more conversations about the updated language.
And it's on the pages 43 and 44 is where you're concerned? Isn't that?
You're talking about in the,
No, I was just looking at, which one are we
They
doing?
gave us a packet.
Oh, okay, but that was from last time.
This was from
It's-
Tuesday.
Update 115 is what he's referencing.
yes.
Oh, okay.
It's the update
okay,
115.
Okay, okay. 'Cause I was like, that other one didn't
Um,
make any sense. Okay.
Yeah, and the two that I'm most concerned about, or want to think through a little bit more, is DIA local.
On what page?
I believe it's, 147. And there's another in the F section that deals with something similar.
Oh, okay, I understand.
You understand?
Mhm.
We'd have to have a second.
Okay.
table it, so.
Well, I will second to move to table it.
Okay.
I'm on
So
the
we-
policy committee as well, so I would want to be in that meeting to have some further discussion on it.
So it sounds like that, Mr. Morris, that I need to withdraw my motion and just table the entire thing.
Well, so, is it just one policy that you have?
Well, there's two, and the other's very similar.
So I've been advised by Dr. Bowen that one of the updates, including the local updates, relates to Title IX, that you're mandated to put in place. So it would be best if you could identify the particular policies that you would like to table, and then have the board approve the remainder. And so one of them, I heard you identify was DIA local.
Yes.
I believe that is Title IX.
It is.
It does say Title IX there.
Okay. Well, I think what, Madam Chair, you have a motion and a second to table the item. And so you can have a discussion about tabling the item and then vote on tabling the item.
So if it's Title IX, did you still want to table it?
Well, the other is FFH local.
What
Um,
page is that? What page number, John?
187.
Thank you.
So if the local policy does not supersede the legal policy, the legal, again, being the state and the federal, what's the reason for the local policy? Is to further flesh out some details that we want to incorporate in Lamar that maybe Katy or Wharton or another district does not do. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the local policy is what this board decides will be relied upon to govern the operations of the school district. So obviously it can't be contrary to state or federal law, but in some respects it can be more restrictive or expansive, provided that it's still lawful.
So, I still want to table the two. I still want to vote on either tabling those two or tabling the whole update, whichever is the best route to go legally.
Well, given that the policy that you would seek to table really is DIA, I think we get back to the original place that the board at this point, given that there's been a motion and a second made, it should deliberate tabling the item to the next regular board meeting.
And my understanding then is if we table the whole thing or DIA or whatever, then we would be out of compliance with federal law.
I'd have to study it, but I think that that might be true in terms of your need to adopt Title IX regulations, but that happens to be the very policy that I understand Trustee Welch to have concerns with.
So would we not get around that by approving the legal policy and?
Oftentimes, and I think this is true of Title IX, the new Title IX regulations, the legal requires that you actually have the policy in place. I can't recall if there's a specific deadline by which you have to have that policy in place.
Looks like we have someone from the administration that is affirming what you're saying over here.
I'm sorry.
August 14th. Yes.
So we're already behind.
And the other policy is second page, which is the student facing.
Well, I don't know if you can hear that. I'll say it more loudly. The district is already behind the deadline for adoption of a policy that's required by law. It was actually supposed to have been put in place by August. So, honestly, I can't tell you what the effects are. You're past the deadline. I don't know that it's a significant issue to be past the deadline for an additional month as you consider the local policy. But as I sit here today, Trustee Welch, I haven't studied it well enough to tell you if there's any risk associated with further delay in adopting that local policy.
And I'll say that when President Williams talked to me about it, we were already behind, so another month was the reason why I said that we could possibly just delay it.
Dr. Randall,
And that may not have been smart, but
is there a reason that the administration presented this to us last month in October, which was already past the deadline? I know we had a lot going on with COVID, and I don't blame anyone if that's the reason.
And that's a part of it with all of the updates and all of the timing for that. I think that and I'll let staff reference it. I think that what we responded to it when we got it, and now that's why. And you remember, you always have first reading, second reading.
Correct.
Unless there's an emergency, and we did not come to the board with it as an emergency. So I don't know.
Hello. So we've been following the legal guidance. And so the implications basically would be if something happened in our school district and a complaint was filed and we don't have these things in place, then we would have an issue.
Help me understand that, because the law is still in place whether we have local policy or not. We cannot overstep TEA or the Texas Education Code or the federal government for that matter. So the law is already in place to protect whatever might go wrong. So,
But the law says that we have to have the local policy in place. That's part of what the law says we have to have. And so that's the out of compliance piece.
And let me add to that, and I think that Ms. Mathis referenced this in her original statement as well. Part of the requirement that you have the local policy, if I'm recalling correctly, is that you have a particularized grievance process.
Correct.
And so when she was sharing with you that in the event we had a complaint, and we don't have the updated grievance process in place, you know, that could be a bit of an issue. The likelihood that will happen is hard to predict. There may be a way that we can manage our way through that situation on an individual case basis. And so I tell you, on balance, I think I tend to agree with the original advice that Dr. Randall gave to President Williams. I think you probably can push this off to December if that's what the board would like to do to give it more study.
May I have a question, though? I mean, I know when I was on policy, we did review all the local, and we did update some local. We didn't dive into anything that was going to go into higher than that, but we did it at a later time, and we came back and we said we would like to change that. We came back with wording. Even if you approve this, you could always go back and look at it and bring it to the board for changes. Am I correct on that?
That's absolutely correct. There's no impediment to the board coming back at a later date should you adopt this policy and find need to further revise it.
Because that's what we have done before at a later time. And then what we did was we rewrote it, we sent it to the lawyers, they rewrote it a little bit more, and then we brought it to the board for the different readings. I was just putting that out as a suggestion if that's going to be hard on them not to have something in place.
Where we're talking about dates, at the very bottom, the date issued, can you explain that? It said January 10th, 2019, then it's got 7/14/20.
The update was
what-
7/14/20.
The last one
We've
was
had policies
updated
in
in
place
June.
for Title IX, but they updated it, and it had to be implemented by August 14th. So TASB worked on it, and they got their update together in July, but it wasn't pushed out until August. And so now the board has to approve what they have given us. Now, further procedures we have to then put into place. We don't have posted like we should, the information about what happens if someone files a complaint. And so that's part of our requirement, and we're waiting for the board to approve this, so then we can post what we need to post.
And just by way of further background, these were regulations that were driven or issued by the Department of Education. TASB had to respond to those federal regulations, and it created a new legal or updated legal and updated local policy. So that's why we have that now. And my recollection is in the new regulations have different burdens of proof associated with complaints related to violations of Title IX. And so if there were a complaint, yes, we would be guided by what the law says those burdens of proof are, but it still does require adoption of a local grievance process, and that's included in your recommended local policy. But I think that Trustee Danziger's thoughts are right. Historically, the board has generally adopted the update and then had time to go back and review certain policies that certain of the trustees were concerned about. And if there was discovered a need to tailor a local policy to the district, the board has, after the fact, after original adoption of an update, amended local policies as the board saw fit. So that is an option.
And I'm not necessarily against the update. I just wanted more time to study it and think it through and have some conversations. So I want that to be on the record. So I'm going to withdraw my motion, and I have nothing else to say on this matter at the time. So If this,
If you withdraw the motion, so since it's been seconded, it's considered on the floor. If you choose to do that, you certainly may, and the board can, just by consent, allow trustee Welch to withdraw his motion. If anyone objects, then you would go forward with the vote on the motion.
Do we have any objection to letting him withdraw the motion? Okay, so motion is withdrawn.
All right, so that leaves you back to your original motion to approve the item as recommended.
Okay, so taking a vote. Yeah, so all in favor, raise your hand, please say aye. Okay. And all opposed?
opposed.
Okay. So Mr. Welch opposed. Okay. I believe we go next to B15,
Yes, ma'am.
correct? Okay, we-
82, and I will, as soon as I get to it. Madam Chairman, Madam President, we ask that the Board of Trustees approve JG Consulting to provide consulting services to assist the Board of Trustees in the selection of the next superintendent to serve Lamar CISD.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, so yes, Ms. Danziger makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Welch seconds. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Oh,
Oh, any
yeah,
discussion?
discussion.
Sorry.
Other than just, you've got the agreement?
We
The
did get
contract?
a
Yes,
final
yes, we-
agreement, and it will be, the board will be approving the selection of the contract, or authorizing the contract, so we're ready to go.
Yes, it's ready to go for the president's signature.
Okay.
Thank you.
And they
And
include
and what they said that they were gonna do is in the contract.
Okay.
the freebie on his dime, like they said, the transition. I
All,
want to make sure that's in there. All right.
well.
You read the contract before you
I
sign.
will. I'm going to read it. I'm going to look for that. Okay.
Believe
Always
me,
worried I was
believe me, a
getting-
bunch of
I will
eyes
read it.
were on it because, we wanted to make sure that there was no nickel and dime after the fact.
That's
And
exactly right.
That is not the case.
Or it could say that you're gonna pay for it, so they can.
No, I will look for my name on there then. No. Okay.
Alright.
Any more discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye.
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 None opposed. Motion carries. All
And the next item that was pulled was that the Board of Trustees approved the purchase of Destiny Resource Manager, complete addition and implementation services for Follett School Solutions Incorporated.
right.
May you need a
Can I
motion?
make a motion to approve?
I'll make that.
Okay, Mr. Hubenak makes a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Danziger makes a second. I believe you.
Discussion, I pulled it because we didn't really necessarily finish our conversation the other night.
Oh,
I don't,
I'm sorry, I'm being silly.
He's on a mission.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, anytime David comes to the podium, he gets excited about technology, so.
would you like to speak, sir?
That's my job.
I know it.
That's right.
No, I don't really have any objections to this. I'm gonna vote for it. I have a bigger overarching concern that, except for the specialized courses that a child would take between K and 12, which would be a technology course, some of the CTE courses, and I know there's some others, it seems like we're piling, and I'm all for technology. I use technology every day in my life. It just seems like we are getting so many new things in the classroom to teach English and history and math. And to maintain those things, we need other policies. And to maintain those policies, we need warranties. And to maintain those warranties, we need, additional funds. And it just seems like we're piling up and up and up. And this is the reason why public school systems never have enough money. And most of public school is learning the basics of a well-rounded general education. So it does not make sense to oppose this, because we do have a lot of technology and we do need an accurate way to track it. But I pulled it in case anybody else has any comments, but that's my overarching concern, is that we're just piling policies and warranties and Well, we need this now, we need that, we need new iPads, we need new laptops, we need new carts to store the laptops, and it's like, when does it stop?
It does.
I mean, we're just talking literature and math, and, you know, at the end of the day, you can teach that without a computer if you have to. So I'm not opposed to it, but that's all I got.
Mr. Welch, I certainly respect your position,
Yeah.
but I do want to commend David as well as the instructional staff. One of the reasons this district pivoted in COVID back in the spring and didn't slow down was because we were ahead of the curve with this type of thing.
Right.
They started thinking about this a decade ago or more, and making sure that the infrastructure existed so that you could be able to take and operate those computers both in school and virtually. So I want to make sure to commend them for being forward-thinking enough to be able to have the district in a position to be able to spin or pivot if we needed it.
And I would just like to put on the record, I brag about our district and the fact that we have a lot of technology in our classroom. And I've tried to recruit some teachers to come to this district because I'm like, hey, check out what we've got compared to some other schools. But I still stand by my comments.
Where did the initial 78,000 come from? Is that from your budget, or is it from?
It's from savings in computer refresh funds from
That's what I was-
past bonds. A little bit from 2014 and some from 2017.
If we'd been having some technology meetings, we would have some of that information. COVID has quit, and then the rest of it will come every year from the general fund.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
But, it says that this will come out of our general fund for subsequent years. About how many years do you expect this will help you? Don't know yet.
Probably until something else replaces it, but this is, you know, it's just like a library system or anytime we're checking out anything, as long as we have technology and as long as we're putting it into the hands of students and teachers, we'll need to track that. So I don't see an end to this in the near future.
But everything is always changing, so you have to keep up with it.
Yes, ma'am.
And this would, every time a school is built and added, we roll them into this program, so they're gonna be able to coordinate with one another.
Yes,
correct?
absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
What is the dollar amount associated with the technical computer inventory? So we're using $33,000 will be a general fund budgetary item for subsequent years. Is tracking, what's the dollar amount associated? So like our inventory of laptops, iPads, that will we be tracking?
Yes.
You follow me?
Are you talking about the software that we use for a technical inventory and?
No,
Okay.
if you're tracking a laptop,
Yes.
how many laptops do we have in the district?
14,000, prior to COVID, it was about 14,000 student laptops, and I don't remember the.
Time the cost is what I'm getting at. So the cost of what we're tracking.
Right now, there's a lot of man-hour cost to what we're tracking. Because I misspoke on Tuesday night when I said that we've been tracking it in Destiny Library. We did that in the spring. Because we couldn't get district-wide reports out of it, we switched to Skyward in the fall, which is not designed to do that. But at least we could get district-wide reports. So it's been my team and digital learning and teaching and learning have spent a lot of time getting updates from our librarians and everything else. So there's been an extensive human resources cost to tracking things with the applications we have right now.
I think what Mr. Dukeck is asking though is what is the inventory, the cost of all of the inventory that will be tracking, like all the iPads, all the laptops, all of the, everything that will be in this?
14,000 plus student laptops, 3,000 teacher laptops, plus several other things. The student laptop is $680, an iPad is $385.
I was just making a point.
Millions.
That, yes.
He's trying to say,
exactly.
yeah.
And
What you're spending is what
The
you're
math teacher in me
tracking as
took me
$1
literally,
million
and I wanted to
dollars
solve
of
that.
inventory, which you don't want to get lost. Thank you. That's appreciated.
Math teacher in you too.
Any other discussion? Okay. All right, so this time we'll take, thank you. At this time, we'll take a vote. All in favor, raise your hand, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries.
Madam President, we're down to the information items.
Yes.
And I would ask if there are any questions on any of the information items. We will have a presentation for the COVID-19 update.
Any other questions on the information items? Okay.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So an update on our return to school guidelines and COVID-19. We obviously continue to work with local and state officials as we provide safe and effective instruction during the global pandemic. When it comes to instruction, we continue to see increases on on-campus instruction. You'll see total students at 36,588, on-campus students currently 24,234, and virtual students 12,354. So roughly 2/3 of our students are back on campus, and that's a 21% increase from August when we had 45% on-campus students. We launched the COVID-19 dashboard in September, and that is updated twice daily, Monday through Friday. Parents and staff can visit that site at their convenience to see the latest snapshot of the COVID-19 active cases in our school district. As of this evening, district-wide cases are at 80. Student cases, 51. You can see the breakdown is fairly equal across the lower, middle, and upper grades, and we have 29 staff cases currently in Lamar CISD. When it comes to contact tracing, the district continues to work collaboratively with the Fort Bend County Health Authority. We've had periodic visits by Health and Human Services on our campuses to ensure that we are having safe and effective practices. In fact, earlier this month, they came out to Foster High School and did a visit and were quite complimentary of our student spacing at lunch and the separation of our students for the directional hallways that had been in place, and actually asked if we'd be interested in sharing some of those things with other school districts in the area. In terms of M&O, all of our campuses continue to be e-misted on a monthly rotation, which is important. We actually began the e-mist program before the pandemic, and every single month all campuses receive this hospital-grade disinfectant. And of course, anytime there is a student or staff case of COVID-19, it is immediately e-misted again. The M&O department delivered 25,000 washable face masks to all district employees last week. So in total, that's 75,000 face masks disseminated to all of our staff. Disinfecting wipes continue to be available for all of our classroom areas in Lamar CISD. And recently, 12,900 student barriers have been delivered to our campuses all across the district. In child nutrition, some recent federal and state updates allow us to continue to provide our free meals throughout the remainder of the school year through June of 2021. So far, child nutrition has set up 19 distribution sites, and those meals are ordered online on Wednesday for pickup the following Monday, and there are 2 pickup times, so if folks can't come in the middle of the day, they can come back in the evening for any one of those sites to receive their weekly meals. In technology services recently received the additional shipment of 4,000 laptops. That dissemination process is underway. These deliveries started on November 17th, and we expect that to continue over the next few weeks. They also continue to assist all of our students and staff with the Student Help Desk, which was actually created following the pandemic at the end of the previous semester. In financial services, we've actually filed 5 reimbursement claims under the CARES Act, which total just over $4.8 million. As of right now, roughly $135,000 has been received to date, and so these claims would go for things such as the staff or student laptops or iPads that were ordered in the spring of 2020, as well as some salaries for staff whenever we closed for that week, other qualifying staff, PPE, virtual instruction equipment, and additional supplies. And when it comes to campus support, Dr. Randall mentioned with his superintendent report, obviously we're very thankful for the efforts of our staff throughout this school year. So at Brazos Crossing, we've been looking for ways to support our employees, especially this month. We implemented No Meeting November, which minimized essentially all meetings unless they were absolutely essential to give time back to our employees. The academics department actually has been assisting our campuses with phone calls to parents, so that burden isn't only on campus staff. And then, as was discussed at the workshop earlier this week, we are recommending a waiver expansion for annual teacher appraisals, which was obviously approved. So with that, that's an overview of what's happening with COVID-19. Myself, as well as staff, is available to talk about these items or anything else you might have an interest in.
Is the state still providing supplies? I know at the beginning of the pandemic they provided things, I think, like hand sanitizer and things like that.
I'll let Chris discuss the latest.
Prior to the school year starting, we did receive several deliveries from the state, from TDEM. Those were things like hand sanitizer, disposable masks, washable masks, etc. We have not received an additional shipment since then. We've been in communication with TDEM about some additional needs that we will have over time. Some of those things we have supplemented. We have purchased additional washable masks because the shipment that they sent us, we went through, and we wanted to continue to provide that for the staff. But since the initial shipment that we've received of PPE, we have not received anything else from the state. And I do want to say that they were very timely. They got it to us early on so we could come up with a good plan to get it out to our campuses and sites prior to the school year starting, but we have not been resupplied yet.
Have you had any trouble purchasing PPE or any other supplies?
Absolutely. Every one of those resources is scarce. I'll get into some specifics. Hand sanitizer was early on was a concern. That seems to not be an issue. We're well supplied with that. We received almost 4,000 gallons in our initial shipment, and we've purchased some since then. We're in good shape. Probably the two things we've seen that are the biggest challenge have been disposable rubber gloves. They are just, with the medical field needing them, we've been very creative with plastic gloves that are used by child nutrition, that they can be used in ways for the needs that we have for them, and we've purchased quite a few sets of those plastic gloves. And the other is disinfecting wipes. Those, when you go into a grocery store, the shelves are still empty. I want to publicly say that Aaron Morgan and his crew, especially James and Hector, have been amazing at the way they've been creative to go out and find these resources and procure them in ways that are appropriate so that we stay with what we're supposed to do. But we have had to be creative. There are multiple different types of wipes with different substances that are CDC approved, from quaternary alcohol to also peroxide based, and we've used multiple types. As we change from one to the other, we make sure we're in compliance and change the labels and do the things we're supposed to do so that everybody knows what's in those. But I think we did the math, and we started, before school year started, we started talking about the number that we would need of disinfecting wipes for the first semester, and it's about 1.1 million. So we have a system in place where we don't ever want a campus to run out. When they start to run low, there's a process where they order them and they are resupplied. Our goal is that those classrooms, they never run out of those PPE supplies that they need. We've also supplied, for example, the face shields for every staff member in the district, and we have additional that we're going to look at sending out for second semester. They are scarce resources. We're continuing to have challenges. Yes, ma'am.
Besides those items, rubber gloves, wipes, and face shields, is there anything else the campuses are kind of really in the need of, or if they had a wish list that they're looking for, or are they pretty much at most of the campuses content in what they're getting?
I talk with our campus principals a lot, and they've been great, and the staff has been very creative. One of the things, as Dr. Rockwood mentioned, we've supplied almost 13,000 student barriers. And one of the things that we've really allowed our campuses to be creative with those, because one of the things is they don't necessarily need to be on every single student desk. You can space them out every other. There's ways to do those in tables when you have the younger kids. But there probably is a need for additional barriers, and we're having conversations right now. We really focused on grades pre-K through 3 because those students are not masked at all times. So we really wanted to support our elementaries and make sure that they had what they needed for those primary grades. As we move into the secondary, we did supply some, not quite as many, but those students are masked all the time. But I would say the barriers, the student barriers.
And those
maybe.
barriers, are those the ones you purchased, or there were some that you were saying that in-house we were gonna try to make?
We, again, as we tried to be creative, we looked at what we call the quad divider. We weren't able to come up with a system that was, we can put kids in a containment vessel, but if they can't hear what the teacher's saying and they can't see what's on the board, it's not very helpful.
No.
So we weren't able to do that, and we made a pivot, and we used those identified funds to purchase more of the desk dividers. So we've tried to support them in any way we can with those.
And a rough estimate, how much do you think we have spent so far now? I know we had a budget, but I think we've probably blown that.
For just,
PPE and everything too.
gosh, I'm gonna, Jill, I know I have to get permission to spend it, but I couldn't tell you what that number is.
So it's hard to say how much we've spent, because we've spent it in 2 different fiscal years. But I'll answer the question by saying this. We've spent about $4.5 million on laptops and things like that. So those are things that we're applying for reimbursements for. We've got about probably $4 million more in supply costs, like the sanitizers and the barriers and all that kind of stuff. So I could probably support those numbers pretty easy, but as far as CARES Act money, this is kind of another way to look at it. The state supplanted our state aid this past year by $3.4 million, roughly. So we've had to apply for those funds in order to make ourselves whole for our state aid. Then we had about $83,000 in Medicaid salaries we were able to recoup. $58,000 in salaries for overtime when we were closed down during the week after spring break. We've got a claim in for laptops that we purchased in the spring for about $1.3 million. And then I have claims of probably a little over $6 million to do yet. So our claims are gonna total about $10.5 million. So that's kind of one way of looking at it.
And we're kind of the
And
lucky ones
that's
that
kind
we
of
have the
spitballing
money
it a
to be
little
able to
bit.
do what we need to do.
Is that $10.5 million as of today?
Mhm.
That's not for the next 5 months?
Correct, but we've, if you'll recall, we brought amendments to the board for ratification, where we've amended the budget and stuff, but so far, we're keeping up.
Okay, that's kind of what I was checking on. Because I guess if you needed more, you'd come to us.
Oh, yeah. For sure, right away.
Well, I'd rather hear from the teachers and the principals that they're getting what they need, and it bodes well for everybody.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question or two for Dr. Rockwood. Have there been any deaths in the district, staff or students, related to COVID?
We had an unconfirmed staff case this summer.
Unconfirmed staff
Mhm.
case. And we're not sure if it was,
Initial reports indicated that it was, and the family chose not to follow up with us on the cause.
and it was over the summer.
Correct.
Changing subjects a little bit, Dr. Rockwood, could you speak to the experience that maybe some of the kids are having in class versus the virtual? Because I've heard a lot of negative things in other districts about their virtual learners, that there's not a whole lot of learning going on in some cases, and some kids are not being as accountable. And I know that there's probably some of that in Lamar, probably a lot less, but I just wanted to know if you guys have received any kind of feedback.
Well, I think without a doubt, virtual learning has been a big challenge for all districts across the state. And so, I'm not going to say that it has been without its bumps, but as mentioned earlier, our staff has been supporting our campuses, trying to reach out to parents, get with our students about things that are occurring. I'll let Dr. Mossage jump in if she wants to share some specifics about classroom activities. But we are certainly focusing on our virtual learners just as much as we are our on-campus students.
One of the things that we tried to ensure that our community realized was that our instruction was going to be different from spring of 2020 to fall of 2020. And that has been realized. We do believe, obviously a lot of kids, I think, went into it, and parents thinking possibly that we were going back to spring of 2020. But as far as grading and the expectations that we have in asynchronous learning, we feel that we're providing quality education for both groups at this time. Now, there have been struggles, as you're seeing across the state and across the area, in regard to virtual learners. And what we have been doing is looking at the data very closely, working with the campuses and communicating with parents. And that's why you have seen with Dr. Rockwood's and the numbers that we have more kids coming back to campus, because a lot of those kids that were struggling in the virtual world have been more successful in the on-campus world. And we continue to monitor the data. We're looking at the second 6 weeks, and we're doing the same thing, as well as continuing to support our teachers and providing and the expectation of providing the best quality education in both modalities. Did I answer your question,
Yeah,
Mr.
you did.
Welch?
I had an AP in the district who contacted me a while ago and said, you guys need to change the policy. We need all kids back on campus, because he was concerned about some of the kids not in the building and their education suffering. And that's why I'm curious about it. And I've heard things about, especially HISD and some of the other large districts around the country, that some kids are just completely falling off the map. They're not even responding. Their parents aren't responding. They're not answering the door when someone follows up. I'm concerned about that there's going to be an education gap in our culture and our society in the years ahead because of all this. And I know Lamar's done an incredible job. And we don't have a lot of the problems that some of the other districts do because of you guys and Dr. Randall's leadership here. So
We're doing everything that we possibly can to look forward, not backward, to ensure that we're currently looking at the data that we have and creating plans and actions and supporting our campuses so all of our kids can be successful, because we do understand the challenges that they have. We as a district began our school year with the choice to our parents. We know that some kids are struggling, and we're continuing to communicate with those parents. And I will tell you, the majority of the phone calls that I have been privy to actually have been very positive. And parents saying to their kids, well, I didn't know this, and I'm going to get on their kids, and they're coming back. And you can see that the outreach at the campus level and at the district level is working without particularly a mandate at this time for kids to come back on campus. And we're excited about that, because we do believe it shows a trust within our processes and procedures and the education that we're providing.
And we want to thank the board for your support of some of the initiatives that have been put in place. Our teachers are working hard, extremely hard. The work is tough, but they're doing it. And I think that reaching out to virtual parents and kids, they're doing that. And but it's not easy.
Sure. Well, and then as more kids come back in, then the teachers have to pivot, because then you don't need as many virtual teachers, or do virtual teachers get maybe more students so that there's another teacher on campus so that the classes are not overcrowded? Is that which?
Each grading period is a transition to look at the numbers that are coming back, and then sometimes the numbers that are going back out. And yes, there are teacher changes that can happen from the virtual world into on-campus, and then some adjustments that we would make with on-campus at times, which is not favorable at times, but we have to in regard to balancing the classes as best as possible.
So it's almost like every 9 or 6 weeks, it's the beginning of school again.
Yes, ma'am.
That's hard. That's
Yes.
very hard.
Yes, ma'am.
I
And we're,
appreciate what y'all do because that's not easy.
again, and our teachers and our administrators are amazing in the work that they're doing each and every day to prepare for that. It takes 2 solid weeks for them to do that, and we provide them some praise at this time.
Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else. So at this time, it is 8 o'clock exactly, and we are adjourning to closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.082, the Open Meetings Act to discuss personnel, land acquisition, or consultation with our attorney. It is 8:20 p.m. We have a quorum, except with the exception of Ms. Bronzell. Are there any motions to be made?
Madam Chairman, I move that the Board of Trustees approve personnel as presented. Is there a second?
A second. Ms. Kaminsky seconds. All in favor? We do it all
Yeah, we do
individually?
each one separately. All in
Yes.
favor?
All in favor, say aye, raise your hand, please.
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. Do we have another motion?
Madam Chairman, I move that the Board of Trustees approve the recommendation of Robert Langston as the Director of Purchasing and Materials Management.
I have a motion.
I'll se-
I saw Mr. Welch's hand first. Mr. Hunt, you'll second?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Motion carries. We have another motion?
Madam President, I move the Board of Trustees approve the recommendation of Robin Stone Lofton as the Director of Technology Support Services.
I have a motion?
Second, you just need a second.
Oh, just need a second, sorry.
I'll second it.
Ms. Danziger seconds. All in favor, raise your hand, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. Are there any future agenda items that we'd like to add at this time? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. The time is 8:22 p.m.